Good evening and welcome back to 20Somethings TV. I will be your moderator this evening. I am here joined with Anthony, Amelia, Stevie, and Ellie. And today we're talking about just two topics, but we think they're both pretty interesting. And if we have time, we might get to a third. But something that's happening kind of in relation to a pop culture new show from South Korea, Squid Games. Thousands of South Korean union workers actually went to protests in a couple of different cities last week, some dressed as characters from the hit television show Squid Games in order to protest for more workers' rights, regular hours, and better pay. What do y'all think about that? Is that a good way to create some change? What are some thoughts?
Well, I think it is definitely creating. I have an echo. I think it's definitely going to get some attention because Squid Games is so popular right now. I personally haven't watched it. I've seen bits and pieces, but I am squeamish and a scaredy cat and not necessarily into that genre. So I haven't watched it in full, but I definitely think capitalizing on the trends and how popular it is a good way to get attention right now.
Someone said that in Squid Game, you see characters scrambling to survive after being laid off at work, struggling to operate fried chicken diners or keep as dairy drivers, a rental service where drivers take drunk people home in their own cars. So that's someone said that reminded them of their coworkers who actually passed away. That's a South Korean union worker. So they're experiencing similar working conditions as some of these characters who quite literally have to fight for their life.
Yeah, I haven't seen Squid Games, but I read off the article when I looked up the story. I read that this was actually influenced. Squid Games itself was influenced by the crisis in South Korea already. So it's interesting how it's like creating kind of like a revolution based off of that. Well, not entirely based off of that, but it's helping that basically.
I thought it was interesting as well that as I was doing research, it said that police are trying to disband crowds due to COVID regulations, and that there have been a lot more cases there. So the government has only really addressed the COVID cases as they rise instead of like what the workers are actually gathering about. I don't know. I feel like if there's that many people gathering for like one specific cause, obviously COVID is very bad, but both issues should be addressed, not just the one that's kind of like the government wants to address.
Definitely. And I'm sure so many people watch the show not really realizing how much of it is based off of, reality. So I think as horrifying as it is to sort of see, people are kind of looking at the show as like a horror, somewhat dystopian, situation. Like it's not that far from the truth. If people are stepping forward. And I think, that's horrible to like that comment I think you read out loud, Lee, is really powerful because it really showcases to all of us what exactly the situation is like. And it's something I think, particularly in America, we tend to only get news, about other Americans, which, that's very questionable whether or not that's right or not. But I think, this is one way to sort of get it across in a way that everyone understands, however unfortunate it is.
I think it's really interesting that this show became popular like almost overnight, and the whole issue that it was kind of based around is just like the social class divide and the economic status of the people of South Korea in the lower class. And that we don't hear that much about that, but we're so drawn into television shows that kind of sensationalize these issues. If there are no thoughts on the remainder of that topic, I feel like the next one, there's a lot of conversation around that. As some of you may know, Alec Baldwin on the set of the film Rust fired what was thought to be a gun loaded with blanks. However, there were live rounds in it, and it actually went through the director and went through the DP and hit the director as well. So, unfortunately, Helena Hutchins lost her life, and the director was in the hospital for a few days. What do we think about that? There's obviously a lot of conversation around, I guess, proper safety protocols on set, kind of who the fault lands on. What were y'all's thoughts when you heard about this?
I think, a lot of people were quick to be like, Alec Baldwin can't be held responsible because he's just an actor. He was given the gun. That may, trickle down to props department or whatever PA was sort of in charge of that. However, I saw a really interesting post this week online that was like, as the actor, he might not necessarily be responsible, but as one of the head exec producers, I believe he is on the film, he definitely is, because there was more info brought to light that they'd been cutting a lot of corners and like making crew work overtime and just like a lot of other concern issues, which we've seen, brought up in the strikes recently that have, been concerning, that could have influenced this happening. And it's just, what's terrifying to me is that this isn't even the first time something like this has happened. So the fact that it's happened more than once is mind-blowing.
It's also crazy. It's not the first time for the assistant director too, because he's had I believe it was 3 incidents. The last one in 2019, he was fired for his job because someone shot off a gun, or someone brought a gun on set and wasn't told, and that was part of the safety concerns, basically.
I mean, there's fault all throughout that set. Definitely the AD is at fault. I mean, he picked up the gun off the cart and he yelled cold gun before he handed it to Alec Baldwin. So that's negligence on his part. There's negligence on the armorer's part. She loaded the gun with live ammunition. Number one, why was live ammunition on the set? Number two, why was it a gun? And why was it left on the cart at that point? It's just, it's really disgusting that this is happening at such a high level. I get it. It's a low budget film. But when lives are at stake, you can't do this stuff. It's just a mess. Going outside of unions to hire people, it's one thing when it's smaller parts like PAs and stuff like that. But when it's a props master and an armorer, that's just, it's unacceptable.
The armor also, I think she did an interview back in September saying that she thought she wasn't even suited for the job, and she wasn't even going to accept the job. So that's concerning by itself. I think it was her first job too.
Yeah, she wasn't. I think people are looking at her now and saying, because her father is a legendary armorer in Hollywood, but she doesn't have the necessary training. She's not part of a union. She can't ride on the coattails of her father. And this incident, I think, proves that. I mean, she walked into this saying, oh, it's a cool gig to have, and the coolest part about it is showing people how safe guns are. Well, now you've proved you weren't cut out for the job. And yeah, guns are safe in the right hands, but you didn't train your actors. You didn't tell them to check their gun and make sure it was safe. So a lot of the blame goes to her. A lot of the blame goes to the AD, and I think blame goes all the way up the ladder to the people that hire them.
Stevie, did she say that? Did she say she wanted to show how guns are safe?
Yep.
That's nuts to me, because
let me get you the actual quote. You guys can talk for a second. I'll pull up the actual quote.
Okay. Yeah. I don't doubt you. If she said that, I'm mind boggled, because so many of the deaths in America by guns are accidental and from people who mishandle them accidentally. So most gun deaths aren't even on purpose. So to say something like that to me, and this really showcases that, right? Obviously, I mean, I don't know. All right, does anyone know if they're doing an investigation onto whether they feel that Alec Baldwin was set up?
I don't know about being set up, but I know they're doing an investigation further into just the whole situation, and they're still bringing up the possibility of criminal charges. But there's nothing determined yet that I know of.
I feel even if I was an actor, I would want to double check myself.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's on the armor.
Yeah, especially on a Western film. I have never seen a Western where there weren't firearms involved. I feel of all corners to cut, there shouldn't be any corners, but especially with something like that, where it is like such a crucial point within this type of film. It blows my mind that this was like, one, not the first time the gun had like, I guess, misfired. This wasn't a misfire because he was like practicing, but
Well,
people
was
had
a
walked
little
off
bit of a misfire.
set. People had walked off set because of a misfire. Or I was reading something about like a few camera people, and that's when they brought others in who actually were there on set that day. That's why there was a different people on set.
If we're going to get into the specifics of it, which I think we should, the AD yelled cold gun before he handed it to Alec Baldwin. That means no live ammunition and no blanks. There's absolutely nothing in the chamber.
So he's handed that gun with that, just
knowing that it's empty.
Exactly.
At least believing that it's empty. Should he have checked it? Yes. But we all know that Alec Baldwin is not pro-gun in his personal life. I don't think he would even know what to check for. And that's where it goes back to the armor. She should have taught her actors handling of a weapon and checking that weapon for safety.
Yeah.
And her actual quote on the Voices of the West podcast was, I think the best part about my job is just showing people how people who are normally kind of freaked out by guns, how safe they can be and how they're not really problematic unless put in the wrong hands.
Like,
she's the wrong hands.
Yeah, it's not.
There's a lot of irony in that
It's
scene.
the wrong person in charge. Like,
also, days before the Alec Baldwin one, his stunt double was handed a gun by the same AD, and he was told that there was no ammo in it, and it went off twice. So there's like a recurring problem here.
That seems like too coincidence to me.
Hmm.
I don't know why you would even have real ammo in these guns. And honestly, if I was an actor, this would be such a fear of mine as someone who is scared of guns. And I know when people say that, a lot of times people scoff, but like this is exactly why. It's like someone like myself who, wouldn't know necessarily what to do, but you see these statistics of people who don't necessarily know exactly what they're dealing with, and the accidents that do happen that can be fatal, but are usually fatal. I don't understand why, we make replicas of so many things for props and such. Like why can't we just make a prop gun? I don't even understand why we're doing this and like creating this cause of risk or potential.
I think it's especially interesting that all of this is during a time when I'm a film student myself. There are a lot of people in the film community who are protesting for like more fair working environments, like better hours, secure pay, safe sets. Because I know like there are some people that work like 12 to 15-hour days, which is like insane. So I just think this is a very pivotal time, especially for like the film industry and things like this. Kind of like, I don't know, it adds to the reason why people want like more, I guess, more security in this field and more like safety protocols in place.
One of my first thoughts after learning about this too, which is I think a sad thought, was would this even be making the news if it wasn't such a high up position such as DP and director that were affected, because sadly I think talking again, there's so many hardworking PAs and stuff in our industry, but people don't really look at their names as much as they do, or weigh the value of their names and their work as much as they do certain titles, which I think, we see that across other industries too, but it's just extremely disheartening.
I think another thing that we should talk about is the public reaction, just because I've seen a lot of like disgusting jokes that people are posting, especially like Donald Trump Jr. I don't follow him or anything, but like I looked at his Instagram prior to this like meeting, and he's posted some like disgusting jokes, and a bunch of people are just like, yeah, it's karma. Like,
this is what Alec Baldwin gets for being against Trump, like being pro-gun. Like, this is foul. And he's like posting shirts on his shop saying guns don't kill people, Alec Baldwin kills people, which is like
That's disgusting
absolutely flooring
and distasteful. And
complete disregard for the family. He should
right,
be.
I was just gonna say that.
Not that he's going to be, because we all know he's a horrible person and doesn't feel shame. But he should feel ashamed.
Horrible.
Someone said, wait, who? Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah, Donald Trump Jr., not Alec
Really,
Baldwin.
yeah. Really, really stand-up guy for that. It's despicable.
We have a comment from our very own Keith Brown. I wonder if actors may refuse to be on sets with real guns from here on out. I hope not. I hope we can create better regulations and better safety measures, and we don't have to change our stories for this.
But why do we need real guns, Stevie? And I don't even say this to be like difficult. Like, I genuinely want to know, like, if you built an exact replica, would it matter?
No, I don't think at this point it does.
Like, if we're building like
we don't need blanks anymore. I don't think. I think CGI's evolved plenty. But the thing that bothers me so much about this is that it's at such a high level and this happened. I filmed a film in high school, and we had 5 to 6 real guns on set. We had a union member with us. He used to work in LA, and he was with us the whole time. We went through the process of learning to make sure the weapons were safe, even though we didn't have live or blank ammunition on set. How this happened at a Hollywood level is beyond me.
I don't even think it should matter what level. And I think you make a great point, Stevie, is like, safety should be universal no matter what level you're on. Like, certain things may change, certain things come with budget, but like safety shouldn't. And like your value for other human beings should not be compromised.
Absolutely.
And you can also get hurt from a blank too. That's why I don't understand. Like, if you're close enough, you can still get hurt.
You can. But it's if you want to get really technical about it, there's plenty of videos that you can look up of 5.56 ammo, which is a rifle ammo, really close up, and the damage that it does as a blank. What he was using was not 5.56; it was probably 44.
I don't know what that means, Stevie.
Yeah, it's very technical. That's why I don't want to get too far into it. But it wouldn't have killed Helena Hutchins and then proceeded to injure the AD.
Oh.
Not at that range. I mean, it's just
a final question that I kind of want to like ask y'all that I've like thought of while we're sitting here is, what do you think needs to happen next? Obviously, this isn't the first time that this has happened, but I feel like it's the first time that it's really been at this much like a forefront in the media. So what do you think like the next step is for Hollywood?
I think the regulations just need to be honored, because the AD had multiple incidents on multiple sets, and he kept getting work, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the next step, for one, is to charge the AD and the armor. They're at fault here, no question. Whether it goes higher up and producers are charged for negligence for hiring non-union workers, that's a different story. But at the very least, the AD and the armor are completely responsible and should be charged. I think after that, live ammunition shouldn't be anywhere near a set. I think we're far past. I think we were far past that point when Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, died. That live ammunition should not be on a set, even if it was used for effect. It's just unreasonable.
Even if it's a prop, like you have to be able to make that some other way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, CGI is far developed now that there's no need for it. Blanks maybe, but I think again that's a very limited crew, and union workers making sure that it's safe and teaching your actors how to check their own weapon to make it make sure it's safe, because this should not have happened.
And to add on to that, Stevie, you said something earlier that I wanted to just circle back to, was how the armor, her father was like a very well-known armorer. And so basically that was kind of how she got this job. And I think this is going to be a little controversial. I think that points to a bigger issue in our industry, is where like so many people get hired versus networking versus qualifications, and whether that needs to be looked at, because I think a lot of times, you know, the people who get jobs or the people who move up the ladder, a lot of it has to do with networking and not actual skill training, etc. I don't know how we feel about that. Lee, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, my mute button was blocked by my search bar. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The hiring of people just because of who they know is there's plenty of people that are qualified for the job now, people that are looking for work. The fact that she was just hired for something like this right off the bat with barely enough training to get her by, not being part of a union. I get it. They were trying to cut corners, but you can't do that in something like this.
Now, if there are no more thoughts on these topics, I feel like hopefully we've left you with a little bit of food for thought. I know we've got some film students watching, so hopefully as we all enter the workforce, we put some of these things in place and keep all this in mind as we enter that world ourselves. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week on 20 Somethings TV.